Svanam aprichat bhagavat prajanam. Savasudevanucharam prashantam. Brihaspate praktanayam pratitam. Alingyagadam pranayena bhadram. Svanam aprichat bhagavat prajanam.
Savasudevanucharam prashantam.
Savasudevanucharam prashantam.
Brihaspate praktanayam pratitam.
Brihaspate praktanayam pratitam.
Alingyagadham pranayena badram.
Alingyagadam pranayena bhadram.
Svanam aprichat bhagavat prajanam.
Svanam aprichat bhagavat prajanam.
Savasudevanucharam prashantam.
Savasudevanucharam prashantam.
Brihaspate praktanayam pratitam.
Brihaspate praktanayam pratitam.
Alingyagadam pranayena badram.
Alingyagadam pranayena bhadram.
Svanam aprichat bhagavat prajanam.
Svanam aprichat bhagavat prajanam. We'll go to the word for word. Hare Krishna Guru Prabhu. Welcome. Good morning. Sa. He Vidura. Vasudev. Lord Krishna. Anucharam. Constant companion. Prashantam. Very sober and gentle. Brihaspate. Of Brihaspati. The learned spiritual master of the demigods. Prak. Formerly. Tanayam. Son or disciple. Pratitam. Acknowledged. Alingya. Embracing. Gadham. Very feelingly. Pranayena. In love. Bhadram. Auspicious. Svanam. His own. Aprichat. Asked. Bhagavat. Of the personality of Godhead. Prajanam. Family. Translation. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidura was older than Uddhava, like a father, and therefore, when the two met, Uddhava bowed down before Vidura, and Vidura embraced him, because Uddhava was younger, like a son. Vidura's brother Pandu was Lord Krishna's uncle, and Uddhava was a cousin to Lord Krishna. According to social custom, therefore, Vidura was to be respected by Uddhava on the level of his father. Uddhava was a great scholar in logic, and he was known to be a son or disciple of Brihaspati, the greatly learned priest and spiritual master of the demigods. Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of his relatives, although he already knew that they were no longer in the world. This inquiry appears to be very queer, but Srila Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus his inquiry was psychological and not practical. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Kadamayan Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sugrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tayubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 25. Savasudeva Nucharam Prashantam Brihaspate Praktanayam Patitam Alingya Gadham Pranayena Bhadram Svanam Aprichad Bhagavat Prajanam. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Okay, so here in this section of Bhagavatam, we're experiencing great exchange of affection between Uddhava and Vidura. Great exchange of affection. And just one thing on this spiritual life, because there could be some conceptions of spiritual life that it would not involve very human exchange of affection. And so bhakti, this is the yoga of love and devotion. See, in reading this, I'm recalling, this was back in 1998, and I was in the area of Hillsborough, North Carolina. We were conducting the very first child protection judges training. And there was a Prabhu there named Garuda Das Prabhu. And he's like a professor and a Sanskrit scholar. And he was actually getting his PhD at the time, PhD from Harvard. And he was not in the judges training, although we invited him, but he did not attend that. But one day after the training day, I went to his home and we talked. But I couldn't stop, went on for hours and hours. Anyhow, so he was talking to me, and I'm just reminded of this here. So because his dissertation is about parts of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. So so it comes from a very scholarly place. And so he's saying that okay, so that in this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, right, because there's the feminine and there's the masculine, like that. And so he goes, in Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, we do not worship Radha. We do not worship Krishna. We worship the hyphen. It's like Radha Krishna. Okay, then there's the hyphen. Meaning the relationship is supreme. The relationship is supreme. Okay. So it makes sense that in our attempts at devotional communities that we emphasize quality of relation, that we emphasize quality of relationship. Now, practically, certainly we've heard and experienced things like Well, you can go to the impersonalist yoga place and find better relations than you'll find in the devotee communities. I mean, we've heard that over the decades and years. You can just go to any ordinary place and okay, like that. So at least in principle, in our endeavors to practice bhakti yoga, philosophically, at the foundation of everything, because like this term here in this verse, Vasudev actually means the all-pervading person. Okay, because like it philosophically, there are philosophical approaches where the assertion is the ground of all existence, the substratum of everything is nothing. Even there, many approaches to personal transformation. I've been to seminars. Where they have mantras they chant, and they're celebrating we are nothing, we are nothing. You know, like if we really get down to it, at the ground of all existence is void, nothing. Nirvishesha shunyavad paschatya desha tarini. Other philosophies, the ground of all existence is not void, it's matter. It's whatever, these subatomic particles. It's different philosophies about what's really the ground, what's really the substratum. And then there's philosophies where the substratum of all existence is the undifferentiated oneness of spirit. Okay, right. So none of those approaches to what's at the essence really gives any substantial reason for valuing relation. Because if ultimately the relation is all illusion. Now, again, we could go to different communities with those philosophies, and maybe we'll find their relationships are quite sweet and maybe more pleasing than in some devoted communities where there's attempts to. I remember back in the early years of like the transformative communication programs, and we would sometimes quote Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Rupa Goswami describes qualities, principles that are essential in relationships between persons dedicated to self-realization and Krishna consciousness. Dadati pratigrinati guyamakiti prichati. Guyamakiti prichati means essentially we create a safe and sacred space in relation where it's a safe place to reveal the heart confidentially, inquire confidentially, share the mind in safety and confidence. So we would share that. And in some of the devotional communities, we'd hear comments like, Dear Govinda Das, this devotee community is the last place in the world I'd want to reveal my, why are you smirking, Sonika? Okay, so, all right. This devotee community, this is the last place in the world I want to reveal my heart confidentially. I mean, you know, like maybe I'll find some therapist or something outside of the community or something. But so that's unfortunate. But at least in principle, here in Bhakti, and this is like part of our endeavor in the Satvatove, in everything we're doing in Satvatove, to create genuine sattva consciousness in relationship. Genuine sattva consciousness in relationship. So in this Gaudiya Vaishnavism, at least philosophically, we have a grounds for why to value relationship. And then it's interesting because again, in some of the attempts at relationships, like in the devotee communities, there's like this neglect of relationship, which is like opposite to the philosophy, like we see here between Dhira and Uddhava, such sweet exchange of affection, exchange of love, exchange of affection. No, so we say, well, I guess when they become fully enlightened, then they'll realize that that's all Maya. No, this is exchange of affection with self-realization. In this case, Krishna in the center. Krishna in the center. That's a metaphor Prabhupada often uses. Okay, that's the one with self-realization, Krishna in the center, that's the one that gives value to the string of zeros. You have a string of zeros, 5 zeros, 10, 20, 50 zeros, the value is 0. And then, yes, and just before this, we hear about Vidura in a different flavor of relationship with his half-brother Dhritarashtra. It's like from a place of such deep care, he's angry with him. Like, wake up, look what's happening. Look what's happening for you. And what are you standing for? And you're really ruining your life and doing harm to so many people, shirking your responsibility of what a monarch's supposed to be. Right? So much emotion. And we often use that term, right? A communication-based approach to self-realization. Communication-based approach to self-realization. So not just like a set of communication skills, or let's feel our emotions to feel our feelings. Actually, though, let us cultivate, right, there's this letter, December 1972, from Srila Prabhupada to Balavanta, William Ogle, graduate of Satvatove advance. He lives in this area. He's a prominent lawyer in North Florida. And so Prabhupada writes to Balavanta, he writes, if we want to attract intelligent people to this Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada says intelligent people. So if we want to attract intelligent people, we need to be really, really good listeners. He emphasizes, and he gives the example. He said, like, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he listened for days and days in silence. He listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. So we show that we care. Deep listening. Right? Then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was, well, you've listened. Well, what do you think? And Sri Chaitanya was like, well, since you asked, I do have a few things to say about Vedanta Sutra. Like that. So, So that one before the zeros. So this is spiritual affection between Vidura and Uddhava. This is spiritual affection. Spiritual anger, we could call it. Vidura with Dhritarashtra. Yeah, I was just reading, in my personal reading, I'm reading 6th canto. I was just reading this verse. Muktanam api siddhanam prayana narayana prayana. Sudurlabha prasantatma kotishvapi mahamuni. Kotishvapi. It's a verse very similar to Manushanam Sasashu Kashchit Yati Siddhe. It's in the Bhagavatam about how it's very rare to take a human birth. Let's appreciate the human birth. Let's not take that for granted. And then amongst humans, very, very rare, someone who's actually truly interested in principles that support self-realization. And then amongst those, maybe 1 in thousands and thousands amongst those, someone's actually trying for liberation from material enjoyment, not just, higher level material enjoyment. And amongst those, very rare that someone actually achieves liberation. Amongst those, very rare that someone comes to some interest in bhakti and to become a pure devotee. It's very, very, very rare. And so in the purport there, Prabhupada's making some distinctions, like between impersonal psychology and bhakti psychology. So Prabhupada, he has a statement there. I was just reading this. Yeah. He has a statement there that he says that one who sees everything as Maya instead of seeing everything as Krishna, he's an offender. And he's an offender. That's right. It's the purport in the Muktanam api siddhanam verse. And so it's interesting because sometimes we'll hear some, maybe not so much anymore in our communities, but like where Malini Sanik and I grew up in Krishna consciousness, we would hear things like, Prabhu, that's Maya. that's really you did that, and that's Maya. So actually what Prabhupada's saying there, we've heard those things. Okay, what Prabhupada's saying there, one who sees everything as Maya, instead of seeing everything as Krishna, he's an offender. So nothing is Maya, right? So this exchange of affection, right? Nothing is Maya, everything. Maya means that which is not, and everything factually is connected with Krishna. So nothing is Maya. Now, okay. Now, I might not be seeing the connection of a particular energy or person or activity with Krishna. That means I'm in Maya, because I'm not realizing the connection. I'm not realizing the connection. I'm not real. I don't have realization of how to connect and use everything in service to the source, in service to Sri Krishna, Bhagavat, Sri Krishna, personality of Godhead. So that means the consciousness that is me, we are conscious and we are consciousness, just like light is light and light is illuminating. So I mean, the consciousness that is me is in Maya. I'm into that cloud, but everything is connected with Krishna. How much realization do we have to see it in this whole process of bhakti yoga, as exemplified by Vidura and Uddhava, two very sweet devotees here. The whole process is so that we cultivate realization of how everything's connected with Krishna and how I can relate to all the energies and all the people and all the events and all the complexities with simple intention to enhance for myself and others realization of how everything's connected with Vasudev. Vasudev, again, Vasudev is a Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer you my respectful obeisances. So Vasudeva means the all-pervading person. Again, so this is like very unique to Bhakti tradition. At the core of everything is is not nothing, is not matter. It's not undifferentiated oneness. At the core of everything is transcendental personhood, Vasudeva, the all-pervading person. Right. So to realize how everything's connected with Vasudeva, the all-pervading person, and how to relate to everything in such a way that enhances that realization, that's Bhakti Yoga. That's Bhakti Yoga. Everything, including the apparently unfortunate events that don't go according to script. So, yeah. So some reading this, like some with, let's call it a non-personal approach, they might go, okay, well, so this is kind of like material relations, Vidura, Uddhava, it's sweet, but ultimately it's illusory. Ultimately it's illusory because when it comes to enlightenment, because the idea, if our ultimate conception of the absolute is the undifferentiated oneness, then there's no question of love. Right? That's described here. Pranayena, in love. Love means voluntary exchange between two conscious persons, voluntary exchange of affection and service and understanding. So if it's all one, there's no two. Love means two, voluntary exchange. So in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right at the beginning, Krishna uses the analogy of the banyan tree. And right, probably most of us are familiar with that analogy, right? Krishna talks about a tree with its branches down and its roots up. So where do we see that? Okay, if we're standing on the bank and on the other side of the river or the lake, there's a tree. The reflection, the branches are down, the roots are up. So the banyan tree, that represents material existence, the material world. Just like if there's a fruit on the tree and I try to grab the fruit in the reflection, there's no substance there. There's no substance. I mean, it's like we can't say that the reflection's false. It's real as a reflection. just like a shadow is real and it lacks substance. And the shadow is completely dependent on the actual substance, right? So the reflection is dependent on the tree. And just like according to different conditions of the sun and the clouds and like that, the reflection might sometimes be present, sometimes not. The shadow might sometimes be present, sometimes not, but the substance is always present. And so these, let's say, non-personal approaches to the absolute, then there's realization that, oh yeah, there's no substantial fruit here in the reflection. It's just a shadow, no substantial fruit. And so that's worthy realization. And then Prabhupada makes the point though, and they're seeing only 180 degrees. He gives an example from geometry. They're seeing only 180 degrees, right, of the circle. Yeah, that's the shadow side, that's the illusion side, that's the reflection side. But there's there's the other 180 degrees. Prabhupada describes this in Bhagavad Gita. Right? There's a real banyan tree with real fruit, a real tree. There's the other 180 degrees. And yes, 100 with real relation, real emotion, and real color, right? That the substantial thing, that's the actual banyan tree. A similar analogy Prabhupada gives, just like an animal or a human could be wandering in the desert and thirsty, and say 50 yards in the distance, there's an oasis with water. It's actually a mirage, but the animal will chase it. Oh, it's just 100 yards that way, and the animal will chase it till it dies. Right? It dies. So it's the desert of material life because there's no water. But that's not true. There is water. It's just not in the desert. There is real water in the actual life of the soul. Vijivadu jivanam. So we're here. So here we have like real spiritual emotion, spiritual affection. Right? This is the real banyan tree, and this process of bhakti. It's giving us an opportunity to awaken the actual emotion of the soul, the actual emotion of the soul. Well, so the name of our institute, we coined the term Satvatove. Satvatove. Okay. So, all right. So sattva essentially means bringing to conscious perception that which till now has not been perceived. That's the essence of sattva. And so you could let's call it, there's material sattva, and that might look like raising awareness within the container of the material modes. Okay, and that can look like, oh yeah, I see, I hang out in guilt and shame to get people to tell me that I'm a good person and they like me. Or I can see, yeah, that I'm using resentment to feel superior. But we're raising awareness, coming from Rajas and Tamas, raising awareness. That's sattva. That's the essence of sattva. Then they call it Shuddha sattva or pure sattva. That's here. Pure sattva, the principle is the same. Sattva means coming to revelation, revelation of that which till now has not been fully made in awareness. So that's like here with Vidura and Uddhava, so like ever deeper, ever more expansive and expressive spiritual emotion. So this is sattva, but not born of like coming from tamas and rajas to some awareness of sattva. This is spiritual sattva, not born of the modes of nature. Spontaneous play of devotional love between spirit souls truly dedicated to the highest truth, truly dedicated to the highest truth as reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. True sattva. So, so again, we're not interested in just like a collection of communication tools or like that. At the same time, a communication-based approach to self-realization, such that not imitating, though following in the line of Vidura and Uddhava, that our relationships, we are cultivating mastery, where we're bringing each other, we're supporting each other, whether it's through humor or honest feedback or grave silence. We're truly supporting each other in connecting with that highest guidance within, super soul, super consciousness, connecting with that highest guidance within. And ultimately, Vasudeva, Krishna, ultimately the source of the highest guidance within. In Vedic, technically that's super soul. So then it becomes meaningful. Then there's the one in front of the zeros. And it's like there's this progression describing the gradual, for most of us, gradual process of bhakti given by Srila Rupa Goswami, 9-step progression. Adao Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangato Brajanakri. Right? So it starts with some enough respect for the process that, like, okay, I'll read one of these books. I'll come to one of these programs. Yeah, okay, I have enough. I'm going to give some time, some hearing attention to this process. That's something. Yeah, those who are practicing it, I don't know, I'm curious. I want to find out. So they got some shraddha. And then, okay, so let me associate. Let me associate with Prabhupada through the books. Let me come to a Friday morning program. Let me associate. So that the quality of Sangha, right? We're influenced by Sangha, the quality of Sangha. So we get to look, what am I doing? What am I doing in this Sangha? And tato narta nivriti syat. Again, this you might call it to material sattva, a narta nivriti process, pulling the weeds. Right. And that's when I made the comments about, some things we've experienced in different devotee communities. Not that I'm immune to it. I'm not like pointing the finger, 3 fingers pointed at me, where we're, yes, that maybe in the name of watering, we're conveniently neglecting to notice and pull the weeds, to notice and pull the unwanted things, the desire to feel superior. I was just hearing a lecture, and Prabhupada was talking about, share this sublime knowledge from compassion. And then he was cautioning, he was going, and it's important to not feel proud, to not feel superior, because we have this knowledge. We are the humble servants. We are the humble servants of Krishna, of all living entities, and we're sharing this knowledge in service to them, and to not feel proud. So to notice the weeds in the heart, and of course, if we don't pull the weeds, then we water the weeds. Then each mantra I chant, each kirtan I participate in, each morning program I come to, makes me that much more superior to you. It strengthens weeds like arrogance and harshness and hard-heartedness like that. Yeah. So that's what we found often in the devotee communities. There's like the watering process, and Prabhupada extensively gave about the weeding process, but that's often neglected. And so a lot of what we've attempted to do over the decades has been like to give attention to what is this pulling the weeds process, because otherwise the bhakti lata bij, the seed, the creeper, the flower of devotional service gets strangled, because all the water goes to my need for to be adored and attention, and we're talking somewhat abstractly here, but it's caused quite a lot of pain and misery, untold pain and misery when we're neglecting, because it's like this pulling the weeds process, this healthy communication. This is like, well, I guess that can help the process of Krishna consciousness. No, it's integral to the process of Krishna consciousness. Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, there's the watering and there's the weeding, like two tracks, and it's integral to the process. Rupa Goswami says, in relationships, to cultivate relationships where it's just a sweet, safe place to get uncomfortable, give and receive honest feedback. Sure, we're using some terminology that's not exactly there, but the principles and the examples of the principles and relations like between Vidura and Uddhava, this is essential to the part. It's not like supplementary or something. It's essential to the process of bhakti. It is sometimes said, the path, it is sometimes said, the path to sainthood goes through adulthood. So, because there could be tendencies where, well, I like the sainthood, because like saints get perks. Saints get perks. I mean, you get like the respect, you're the most honored, you get the Mahagalabjamans. Saints get perks. Now, this whole adulthood thing, that sounds like hard work. Yeah, this whole adulthood thing. So yeah, adulthood, like, yeah, looking at my self-deceptions, my shadow side, my rajasic, tamasic lack of effective communication. Looking at how come I'm holding on to envy and this and that, rather than, none of that could be there because I chant my rounds and I wear neck beads. So I must have all the devotional qualities. For sure, Mam Chiyoga Vicharane, Bhakti Yoga Sevate, Sagunan Samtikatan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. One who's fully, unflinchingly steady on the platform of devotional service naturally has all the qualities of sattva. Like Jasti Bhakti Bhavgat Kinchana, Savera Gunestra Chasamasa Tesara. That's true. That's a philosophical truth. To believe that philosophical truth applies to me, that's risky. That's probably dangerous. Okay, sure. Like someone truly on that platform steadily, not like a glimpse of that platform during a kirtan for 5 minutes, but someone steadily on that platform naturally has all the sattvic qualities, including assertive communication. Now we use terms like assertive communication. That's what Bhagavad Gita is. The Sanskrit term is sattvic. It's described in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Sattvic communication means the communication. The communication is we're speaking the truth in a way that's truly beneficial. Okay, so that's important, and that's the austerity of speech. And I can experience it is an austerity because it's often easy, like the path of least resistance. I don't want to rock it, I just won't say anything. And then I'm left with all sorts of withhold stuff. I mean, it's tamasic stuff. Oh, I don't want to get into it, I'm too scared. And they can also be relatively easy, like, here's the truth in your face. Just take it. I'm just being honest. Yeah, I'm honest. I'm like the emblem of sattva. Well, that's not according to Bhagavad Gita. No, to actually speak the truth. Now, also, Tom's Titikshasva Bhartas, there's sattvic silence where I'm perceiving something and I'm choosing not to express it now. According to my discretion. It's one thing to choose silence. It's another thing I'm too scared to say anything. Important distinction, right? But to communicate the truth when it's the effective time to do that in a way where I'm truly coming from a place for a win-win, for the benefit of everyone. I'm truly like in a prayerful place, how to communicate this truth without watering it down, and in a way where like the other person or groups, they're going to feel my care, just like Vidura with Dhritarashtra, they're going to feel my care. Let me choose the words and let me get inspired that way. So it's not about, in the name of truth, taking out my unhealed wounds on you in the name of truth. Okay, so truly sattvic communication. And so, yeah, so in some approaches to devotional relationship and community, sometimes the pulling the weeds part is missing. And of course, if we only pull the weeds and we don't do the watering, then we have a desert. And that's not very productive either, right? If we forget the weed pulling, then we have a forest of weeds. And so, yeah, I know back maybe starting about 13, 14 years ago, yeah, we like people, well, in the very early days of the seminars, yeah, almost everyone who came to seminars identified with the devotee community devotional practice. Starting around 2004 or so, that started to change. And by about 2007, 2008, we'd often like the vast majority who came to seminars, they didn't identify with devotional practice or devotional communities, wouldn't even know what Maha Mantra was. And they would hear Malini and I speak about like pulling the weeds from the garden of the heart, that metaphor. And sometimes like get by the end of the foundation, middle, end of the advance, like, okay, yeah, it's like the most powerful experience of my life. So you keep pulling the weeds. What's the watering process? What's the watering process? Could you like share something about that? And then we started developing things like Satvatove 3, the morning programs, and the roots programs, and our Bhagavad Gita course, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and things like that. Mantra yoga courses. We've taken like, in 2017, because like in environments where they're focusing a lot on introspection and self-awareness and things like that, like coaching, counseling. In 2017, the Association for Coach Training Organizations invited Satvatove to their annual international conference that year, which was in Toronto, Canada, to give a keynote workshop entitled Mantra Meditation and Transformative Coaching. Okay, so then we're coming into those environments. In 2019, Malini and I went to Orlando, and we were invited by the National Association of Social Workers, Florida chapter. It was their annual conference. It was the same workshop. We just entitled it Mantra Meditation and Clinical Social Work. And as a social work administrators in Toronto, it was like directors, founders of coach training organizations. And we described the psychology and the philosophy and the history of mantra chanting. And we mentioned like our dissertation research a lot. Towards the end, we gave out japa beads. And so we're giving the watering process in environments, endeavoring to focus on weeding, you might say, self-awareness, things like that, which kind of all empty, becomes like a desert without the watering process. So I'll read this verse again. Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 25. Savasudevanu charam prashantam brihaspati praptanayam patitam alingya gadham pranayena badram swanam aprichad bhagavad prajanam. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was a constant companion of the Lord Krishna, and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Again, just to summarize there, so such sweet relation, sweet exchange of affection with Krishna in the center. That's not just a side point. With Krishna in the center, that gives it richness, value. So thank you for listening. Thanks for your presence and attention. I welcome at this point, if anyone would like to share any comments or questions. Bhakta Eze.
So you mentioned without pulling the weeds, and then kirtan you go to and you round, you chant, blah blah blah. It makes me that much better, or that much better than others, so much superior.
Yeah.
It was my ego. Like my understanding is that this process is transcendental, that there's no material impediment to the process. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is it not also true that even if I don't pull the weeds, or I have this and that and whatever, that the benefit of going to a kirtan and hearing the Maha Mantra trumps whatever kind of false ego identification I might have?
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, well, it's a question, and it's a response to the question, and your response is completely true and accurate. Yes. So yes, it does trump it. Yes. Right. That's true. So what really we're talking about, well, a few principles to accelerate our process. To accelerate our process, if we're current in our pulling the weeds process, then our hearts, then we're more receptive to get the 100% power of the kirtan. Okay, and still, sometimes where kirtan, some with japa, sometimes said the cure for offensive chant is more chanting. So if I'm participating in kirtan or japa or Bhagavatam discussion with all sorts of weeds, let's keep participating, because it's powerful, and it's more powerful than the darkness and the weeds. At the same time, so that's true. What you're saying is true. Excellent point, and thanks for bringing it to the discussion. So let's just keep going from wherever we're at, because otherwise it can be a kind of hiding behind perfection, like, oh, I'm so fallen, I have such junk in my heart. Better I don't even go for the next 10 years. No, whatever, let's just keep going to the process. Prabhupada sometimes uses example, like whether it's ourselves or others. Let's not, if someone's in the process, let's not criticize. Like if someone got in the shower and go, well, they're dirty. It's like, well, yeah, they're dirty, but right now, but they're getting in the cleansing process. They're in the cleansing process. That's auspicious. Now, at the same time, so the phenomenon that happens, like if I'm keeping weeds of arrogance and superiority and ignorance and deception and conceit and harshness and envy and illusion, like if I'm just like really attached to them for some shadow payoffs, then I might be getting relatively little taste. I might be getting relatively little taste, and then I'll give up the process. So it's dangerous. But if we can, whatever's going on for us, if we can somehow continue the process, that's the strong recommendation. So just a practical example. So let's say I have some weed, some dust in the heart. I want attention, and I want to be admired, and I want to be adored. Okay, and stuff like that. Thank you. She's celebrating. Good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if I notice that I still got, I really want to be the center of attention. Okay, but all right, let me just keep chanting, and then it gets cleansed gradually or quickly, depending on how deeply we're surrendered and how quickly we're surrendered. But like if I'm not even aware of the weeds, because I don't have like friends to give honest feedback, or haven't been to the foundational advanced yet, or whatever it is. If I'm not aware of the weeds, then I see he's less qualified than me, and he's getting all this attention and adoration. And then I might just, then that need for attention might just like drive me away, or might see, then it might try, then I'm going to start gossiping about him over there and her over there, trying to put, because they're getting attention that they don't deserve. And I deserve a lot more appreciation. So maybe I'll just try to put them down by slandering them. Did you hear what? Okay. Now, Krishna doesn't like that, right? If like someone sincerely engaged in devotional service and we're trying to interfere with their service, I'll try to make them look bad. Then we're really making it difficult for ourselves. And then we might just get blown away from the whole process. So there's risks. Thank you, Eze. And Garuda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this class. I'm really appreciating emphasizing relationship with this class. And thinking about like, just this fundamental like idea that, or this paradigm that we have a loving exchanging relationship with Krishna.
Yeah.
Like that's what we really have. And it's, this process is like uncovering that natural or that alive relationship that's already there. And then I was also thinking about like my relationship to Srila Prabhupada, or a relationship to our spiritual master, like what, like it helped me kind of like get like more clear on like my process of that. Like, what is my relationship? How often am I even hearing from Srila Prabhupada? Whether reading his books, or fortunately we have so much live recordings from him, and his letters to the devotees also, like I'm reconnecting to that, like devotees over the years like wrote to Srila Prabhupada directly, and he responded to every single one of them in such a fatherly, like loving way. And so there's so much richness and there, and just to connect more to Srila Prabhupada that way. So I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking about that, and then I'm appreciating that. And then I started this 4-week course with Satvatove.
Group coaching.
Group coaching. We're following the book Relationships at Work, and I'm seeing like, oh, like how much you mentioned in the program today, like accelerating. I think it was in response to Eze's question, accelerating the process. And I'm seeing, for me personally, like I'm seeing so much acceleration already just the past couple of weeks of being in the process of the Satvatove principles and the processes and paradigms. And I'm really like, I can see directly the results of being in that process. And I'm also looking at like my relationship to Satvatove before Bhakti Yoga, because I came into Satvatove. I didn't really have any kind of spiritual practice or anything beforehand. And just kind of feeling like, okay, this is great. I can learn how to really enjoy my life. I can have the job I want, relationships that I want. And then after a while, it's kind of like, so what? I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, so what's the point? What are we really doing here? And I'm like, what is really being anyway? It was still like this like concept that I'm like, okay, I can be those qualities of the spirit, but what am I really? And what is my position? And what is it like directly? And so I didn't really find that out till time progressed, and kind of looking at like, the philosophy behind the Satvatove seminars.
And you started coming to programs.
And like, just kind of playing with the paradigms that this philosophy presents. And, seeing like, okay, I get it. Like, okay, if I'm a servant, I'm part and parcel of Krishna, and that's my constitutional position as servant of Krishna, then like, okay, that makes more sense to give myself more like, to like be more committed and more actively like trying to improve myself. It's just kind of gave me more incentive than where I was at before. I was just kind of like, so what? I mean, it seemed great, I'll enjoy more.
But then you realize it's a bunch of zeros. Like I could add more zeros.
Right.
So I could do the whole emptiness thing with better communication, but still.
And I'm just like, I'm appreciating the Satvatove experience more and more because of my Bhakti Yoga practice. Like the group coaching, it feels like Bhakti Yoga class. It doesn't even like, I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I think it's because of what I've been
Yeah.
cultivating for myself and what
Yeah.
the paradigms I've been kind of like playing with or trying to identify with more and more, like giving myself to. And I'm seeing more and more like, this is all like, this is just, Bhakti yoga philosophy. It's not even like
Yeah.
personal. It doesn't even feel like personal growth to me.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm appreciating that very much. So yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to share. Just kind of those thoughts and feelings, and really emphasizing relations, because I'm seeing like, well, I've been neglecting different parts of myself. Well,
Yeah.
I can see how that's affecting my own quality of my experience with Srila Prabhupada, Krishna, my wife, my kids, my community.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see that like, wow, this is really special that this particular Sangha has these processes that you and Mother Malini and other individuals that have really been like putting your energy into like cultivating this, like just these basic, like, I don't know, little kind of experiences that we can give ourselves to help accelerate us along, because it just seems like it seems like a wonderful like gift that we have in this process of bhakti yoga, to have these these awareness raising processes, these training processes, and yeah, I'm feeling a lot of gratitude and really appreciation. I guess that's kind of what I'm feeling this morning. So yeah, that's all I have to share.
Govinda Prabhu, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, inspired by your sharing. You did reveal some of our secrets there.
Oh. Oh.
No, it's I'm being humorous. No, it's like no, like I think you came in to about 10 years ago in 2012, and it's like it's the same principles and philosophy, and now you're saying you're just giving bhakti yoga.
Yeah, I'm almost kind of like, why did you tell me back then? It would have made more sense. I would have been like, what are we doing here? Anyway, that's just,
Right. Well,
right.
It's actually, yeah. So because like, well, if we start right at the beginning of the foundation, go, okay, actually this is actually we're giving you Bhagavad Gita, or if we put that right up front, maybe we should do that more. But yeah, so you're realizing, and I appreciate, because you're sharing points to how, like, personal experience of how sattvic cultivation in this context actually leads to bhakti. And we come to bhakti and then we raise our level of sattva. Like, it's like it goes both ways. That wherever we're at, the process of bhakti, savai pum samparodha maya to bhakti ratauksiji, I took your pratita yatma suprasidati. Wherever we're at, bhakti is not dependent on being pure, dependent on what time I got up today, whatever. Wherever we're at, engage in bhakti. It's available every moment. Really, there's no excuses. Nothing can get in the way. It's good news and bad news, depending on how attached we are to our excuses. So connect with Krishna consciousness, and then naturally our sattva increases, and we lose taste for the rajasic and tamasic habits, and like that. And similarly, so bhakti is not dependent on sattva. At the same time, it's part of our process of bhakti in the line of Srila Prabhupada to consciously cultivate sattvic habits. And by consciously cultivating sattvic habits, then we open more and more to engage in chant. Just like say you came to Satvatove seminars, and you open more and more to, like, who am I really? Apart from I could get a better job, I could have a nicer family life. Okay, but who am I? So, like, by coming to Satvatove and you raised your sattvic consciousness, then you developed an interest in, like, in the meta questions, and you came to the programs, and you came to this transcendental process I appreciate your personal sharing, very much personal yet philosophical. Hare Krishna. Sonika.
I mean, as you said, what is it? Sharon reminded me of the brief essay that a friend of mine wrote, where he called it Ego and Surrender, where he kind of analyzes the fact that in our conditioned state, oftentimes our spiritual practices are an offering to the ego. So then, whether I want to be seen as a spiritual person, I want to be seen as somebody who follows the rule, whatever it is, or somebody who is very dedicated. So then he says, what we're actually doing is we're taking something that is most sacred, which is our relationship with God, and we're actually using it as an ornament to our ego. And that's offensive. That's a serious impediment and obstacle in our. He says until we've actually surrendered our ego, it isn't a problem. But obviously, that's a slow process.
So an ornament to our ego. I appreciate that imagery.
Just thought that just came up.
Yeah, we can critique it sense gratification too.
Yeah.
In them of our relationship with God.
Yeah.
Slow process gratification.
And like Durgan said, we gotta jump in the shower, however dirty we are.
Exactly. And stay on it.
Yes.
You need to scold
Even if it's a culture.
Or even if it's very hot.
it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonika and Malini. Lakshmi Priya. Lakshmi Priya.
Hi, good Hare Krishna. Dear Brianna, thank you for class. I was listening to your last comment about where Garuda was sharing about coming into the foundational course and not really understanding about that it was all really bhakti. And of course I didn't either, but I'm sharing from my world out here in these four walls. That's my world now out here at Prabhupada House. And I get asked this question, the same question a lot, like, why don't you just put it out front on Airbnb what you're doing? Like, why do you get us in here? And then we find out when we come in the door, because there's, photos and Prabhupada and the altar and the harmoniums everywhere and all this stuff. And then they see me offering the food pretty quickly. They get a sense of what's going on. And I'm just like finding a lot of joy in that. I saw your face when you were responding to Garuda's comment, and I felt the same thing inside of me. It's like there's a real, to me, there's this real special enjoy watching people not know what they're getting into and not know that they need it. But I know on a deeper sense that somehow they ended up here because they could have picked somewhere else. We're out in the middle of nowhere. So you would think, who's even coming out here? So the weary people that are traveling and going here and there that need a spot to stay that's not in a hotel or not in Gainesville, they're so ripe for needing some peace and some sattva type living. And so after they've been here a few days, I get the same question, like, why don't you just put this there? Why are you? I don't feel like we're secretive about it. It says Bhakti Yoga Retreat House on the sponsor, but most people don't look up what bhakti means, so they just show up. And then little by little, I watch this evolution of their consciousness. It doesn't take long once they have some prasadam and then join a kirtan or two and so forth. And it seems as if almost, I find it super gratifying to watch. And I know you guys must too. I'm assuming it's the same kind of joy that someone didn't know what they were looking for, but found it. And they leave so much differently than when they came in the door, that I noticed, like, I put the mailing list by the front door and then I moved it over to where the books are. And like people come in and they start signing up for our email list and they don't even know what they're signing up for. It's just the vibe. And then nobody, even though I always have fear of it. When I was answering the questions for chapter 16, I wrote a little bit about that because I always have fear of someone, getting angry or protesting what they've gotten themselves into. So far, it's never happened, but I still have an underlying fear. But when I see them come in and start signing up and asking what is the harmonium or who is the guy in the picture, then I know they're in the right place, and then it brings me to a higher level of being to have in my contract as a full-time devotee, because I feel like I take on that obligation of, okay, now it's not a secret anymore, so live up to that role, and then trust that it's all gonna play out. But I think my comment leads back to like the look on your face when you were saying, well, and Garuda said, well, why don't you just tell us that from the beginning? Well, it's a different kind of person would come, and a different kind, and the unsuspecting, the person who deep in his heart knows it, he needs it, but doesn't know it overtly, is so much more fun to be with, because it's such a gradual, beautiful transpiration that right in front of my eyes. And it's all the body types and spirit souls that show up are all so different, and yet they all find truth and relief in it. And so I'm just sharing that it feels like a little Satvatove course out here, although I'm not calling it that. And so it also my consciousness gets raised in the process, because I see how important my job is. So I just want to share that. I know I always share from my perspective out here at Prabhupada's house, but I hardly go outside of these four walls anymore. It's so comfortable for me. And I know that attitude is projected to them, that this cocoon that we've created here at this house is so supportive to people in personal growth, spiritual growth, consciousness, everything. Anyway, I just wanted to comment on that.
Lakshmi Priya, thanks for your comment. Kim wrote, thank you, Lakshmi Priya. I very much appreciated your sharing. And Gajendra wrote, in like a needle, out like a plow. And yeah, just for the context, since not everyone might understand. So Mother is Lakshmi Priya Nanasuya. About a year and a half ago or something, they established a wonderful project in Melrose, Florida, about 40 minutes south, called Prabhupada House. Beautiful house and land dedicated to serving Prabhupada and Prabhupada's mission. Prabhupada House in Melrose, Florida. I know you're doing programs every day, and we'll be going down there for a program on Sunday, February 20th, 2 to 6 p.m. And yeah, so I say, maybe we want to put more Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam on the websites or this and that, but we are being direct. Because just like I mentioned a letter from Prabhupada to Balavanta, there's a letter from Prabhupada to Jagadish, letter from Prabhupada to Badri Narayan, lots of letters where Prabhupada says, he says, your actual maturity and development of Krishna consciousness will be revealed to the extent that you're able to communicate these eternal principles in such a way that anyone will respond positively. Meaning that we're so fixed in the principles, we're not attached to the form that it needs to take. We're so realized in the principles that whether we're talking to children or a yoga society or university professors or scientists who have maybe a non-theistic view, or one-on-one with a family member, that we're able to communicate the principles. So for example, like very much with how many times do we use right in the first moments? Actually, in the first moments of workshops, of foundational seminar, we give Bhagavad Gita second chapter, right? So many, like the finger, the owner of the finger, the car, the driver of the car, look at a photo. So oftentimes Prabhupada, right in Bhagavad Gita in the beginning, he used synonymously self-realization, Krishna consciousness. So we're talking about self-realization millions and millions of times. Yeah, that's what we do in self-realization. We're not intrinsically interested in how many times per week you go to the gym. Okay. We're not intrinsically interested in tripling your profits in your business. We'll support you in all of your goals. We'll support you in all of your goals, always with a view to supporting the self to turn towards itself in self-realization, the self to turn towards the supreme in an attitude of devotion. So this is Bhagavad Gita, and we endeavor to present it in terms that people will feel inspired, connected with. Anandini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I also appreciate very much the class and the sharings, and I'm so inspired to hear about Prabhupada House every time I hear about it. So what was happening for me is that, I decided to go to India to this Ayurveda retreat I shared before. And first it was like, okay, health reasons, that's why I'm going. And then, hearing about Vidura and pilgrimage, I thought, why not make it a pilgrimage? And so what moved to the center is I want to go there and chant and read and just be in Lord Chaitanya's land and just absorb that, and the treatments, that's like secondary. And I just noticed that it's such a huge purgatory process that I'm experiencing now, like this.
Okay.
All the stuff that comes up around, all the things that I'm identified with, like I'm looking at 4 weeks and none of the structures, like nothing is going to be there that I have now. And I'm realizing how much like comfort and security and I don't know what I'm getting from being in all these structures. And then what I want to share actually is the appreciation I have for the Sangha here. Like I gave this class speaking about devotee association, and I'm just realizing how much, like if I look at my life and things that are there in my life, I don't think they would be there without this association here. I would be a heap of depression and I don't know what without this association. So I just feel a lot of appreciation and affection, and I wanted to share that.
Nandini, thanks for sharing your affection and appreciation. Thank you. And I'm hearing, that you're going through a purgatory, a purification in your preparations for your 4-week India trip. Yeah, you've never been to India. As far as I know, Nandini, I don't know if you've ever been to any like non-Western country like that. It's like new. It's new, and it's like an opportunity to, since we've known each other 17 years now, you've gotten out of one box after the other. But this is like another, you're feeling it, like going to India for 4 weeks, like structures and foundations that you're accustomed to that will be gone. It's a real adventure, and stuff's coming up for you in a cleansing, purifying way.
It's, that's how I imagine dying is. It feels like a dying process.
Yeah.
And there's a very terrifying part to it. So it's blissful, that there's a lot of good coming. And it's also it's terrifying to look at all the weeds and become aware of all the misery and attachment and the anger and the greed and the lust and all this. To be aware of that, it's terrifying.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's like death of parts of the ego. Now, be sure that in your time in India that you don't actually leave your body. Be conscious to be healthy and safe and all of that. So it's a dying process, because like time of death, like whatever we're attached to, goodbye. Then we really get to look at how attached we are. So with this trip to India, then you're looking at it's like a death process. Let's say getting to see where I'm really attached to temporary stuff. The different upadis, that's a Sanskrit term. Sarvopadi vinir muktam takparat benin nirmalam vishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchyate. So sarvopadi. So this process of bhakti means getting rid of all of the upadis, false designations. I am Swiss, I am American, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm the parent of this one. I have this in my bank account. I have this education. All of the, I'm a Brahmin. All of the upadhis. I'm the senior devotee. All of the upadhis, and that's it's joyful and can also be painful to the extent of our attachment. Thank you, Anandini.
I just want to state, I'm not planning to leave my body. I'm planning to come back and be even more, I don't know, just be more inspired and healthy.
Jai, thanks for the reassurance. Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.